Hello and welcome to Upstage Downstage.
With me, Richard Platt, seated in the upper circle.
And me, Stephen Rees, seated in a cheap seat. This is the Theatre Podcast, where we discuss productions we've seen, things we've liked and may not have liked, giving our complete unprofessional and non-biased opinions.
So grab a brew, take a seat and let's raise that curtain.
On today's episode, we'll be discussing Dreamgirls. We saw this production at Manchester Palace Theatre on the 17th of September 2022. Let your soul sing with the dazzling multi-award winning Dreamgirls. Direct from the West End with an extraordinary story and the unforgettable spine-tingling vocals that sent audiences wild. This spectacular musical production features the classic songs And I Am Telling You I'm Not Going, Listen, I Am Changing, and One Night Only. So Richard, what's it all about?
Meet the Dreams. Effie, Laurel and Dina. Three talented young singers in the turbulent 1960s, a revolutionary time in American music history. Join the three friends as they embark upon a musical rollercoaster ride through a world of fame, fortune and the ruthless realities of show business, testing their friendships to the very limit.
But first, our post-show opinion!
Thoroughly enjoyable.
A show with glitz, glamour and guts.
So with all that said, let's
Set the scene.
Right, Richard, we went to see this on the matinee performance in Manchester just before Mrs. I want to say Mrs. Brown's Boys. No, Mrs. Doubtfire.
Yeah.
Because we managed to get these quickly.
Yes.
Because we thought, well, we might as well double up
while we're in Manchester.
while we're there. And I really wanted to come and see Dreamgirls because I love the musical. Now, this is one of those where it's a film, but was the film based on the stage play or is this...
From what I remember, the film was actually based on the original stage play because it used to be just in Broadway.
But was it still a musical, the original
yes.
script?
Yeah.
So it was, okay. Now, the set. This was a typical blank stage, but with everything being flown in from above, from the sides, and things twisted.
Yeah, it was definitely a blank stage production. It was...
Yes. The thing is, I loved this set. They had these panels that came down, but it looked like it was the backstage of a theatre place. So you had lanterns in the middle of like squared boxes. If you ever see the pictures of Dreamgirls, you'll probably see them all in their publicity still, so you'd understand the picture. But it was like... silhouetted staircases and bars and railings and lighting rigs.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when we walked into the Palace Theatre, basically the curtains were shut as we walked in. There's been a few recently that we've saw where they start with the curtains shut, very old school traditional theatre, where they're hiding it like a chocolate box, waiting for you to sit down, and then when the show starts, the curtains will open. So,
but they did it in a way where the silhouette. Well, not the silhouette, but it was illuminated by just one set colour. But then it changed. And I think at the very beginning it was like a purpley haze, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Yeah, almost like Cadbury's.
Yes.
Yeah, it's that Cadbury's purple, that luscious.
It was lovely.
Just while we were talking about the history of it, it started on Broadway in 1981 in Broadway, and it toured across the US for quite a lot. It did an international tour in 1985, and the feature film was 2006. So it's actually... I'd probably say the musical, the film that everybody knows with Beyonce and...
Jennifer Hudson.
That's the one. Beyonce and Jennifer Hudson probably actually revived it because...
Are you going to edit this out now so it looks like you knew exactly who it was?
Maybe.
So I lose out on a little bit of airtime now because it all gets edited out.
Thank you get a lot of other
ones.
But it's quite interesting though because
like a walking Google you are.
In '97 it actually finished the original the sort of tour of the production, and it wasn't until 2006 that it actually became a feature film. So it's obviously had a revival because of actually doing a film with well-known stars in it, and actually springboarded Jennifer Hudson's career at that point because she wasn't very well known at that point. So it actually. No,
I think she'd just done the first Sex and the City film, didn't she? Or it was around that time.
Yeah, it wasn't. She's not done a lot, but she'd been in. She'd been on.
Or the series.
She'd been on. She'd been on talent shows before. Americans Got Talent, and then.
Well, has she been on that one?
It was. It was.
You Googled it. Who is she?
Yeah, so Jennifer Hudson was on American Idol season 3, so that was really all she'd done before Dreamgirls came about, and I think that this sprung her in sort of, performing with Beyonce. It springboarded her, because in a way Jennifer Hudson's character is the one that is almost the starring role of the production.
Yes.
And I know we're digressing from the actual what we saw, but I think it's important to talk about this because I felt this was a good representation of the film on stage, the actual translation.
Yes, I'd agree, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think you've got a lot of reference points when you look at a film and watch a film, and you think, I hope it's not going to put me off when I see the stage version, because you think, will it be the same or will it spoil it? Because you know the film so well.
Well, after seeing Shawshank Redemption and The Best Marigold Hotel, I'd seen and watched the films of those, whereas this one I was pleasantly surprised. Now, the difference is this is a musical.
Yes.
It's all singing, all dancing.
Yes.
But everything was spot on. Now, before we get too far down this little corridor of wherever it is we're going, let's talk about the directing of this one.
Yeah.
I do have something to say. Can you imagine that?
Something to say.
What I particularly liked about the direction of this, because the actual storyline was about the three girls singing with everybody else and them going on stage, and it's backstage story and stuff going off backstage. I loved how each time they'd have artists perform out to us as if they're on stage, but then the moment it went to backstage drama, the performer moved around to the back.
It's like they faced on a turntable.
Yes, so they faced away from the audience.
A fake audience.
At a corner, so we saw the back of them as if we ourselves were backstage.
Behind the curtain,
viewing
waiting to
the
go
drama
on.
going off. Yeah, a bit like it noises off in the second act.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's what I loved about that.
But it didn't feel clunky. It just felt natural
because
as well.
It also underpinned that everything was going on at the same time.
Yeah.
And it gave a background noise, shall we say.
And everybody, people talk about, there's an old saying of drama within a drama. And what you're seeing is all the discussions that happen backstage that happen on any show or any performance. There's always a group of people talking about something while the lead performer's on stage or doing something. There's always something happening somewhere else. And I think that did really well in showing that, because when you've worked in theatre and you've been involved on stage and things like that, and there's people running about, there's people getting ready for the next performance.
Well, they weren't they? They were putting these dresses on and the wigs, and then the songwriter as well. Should I wear these wigs, or do we need to have a particular style or whatever before we go on, and nerves and stuff?
And I think as well, when they did flip the sort of perspective round, the people that were performing to the fake audience, as it were, still went off the same side that they should have gone off if they were facing forward, and it was very cleverly done. There was no missing moments where it was, oh, I'm at this side, I've got to go that side. There was none of that. Everybody knew their purpose and where they were going and what they were doing in it.
And it happened so quickly. They wouldn't have had time to second guess.
No,
they just
exactly.
went off.
Yeah, and also, I suppose what we need to also mention is these panels that we talked about with lights in, they were moving around as well.
Yes.
So they weren't static. So if you didn't get in the right place at the right time, you'd get knocked over or caught with something, and it'd break the performance of it all.
And there was a moment where one of the backing singers I thought was going to go headbutting into the side there, but just narrowly missed it.
Yeah.
As he was
definitely.
exiting. Anything else about the directing?
I just think
all the musical numbers, I must say, were spot on.
Oh yeah, I mean, I felt like they made them true to the performance of each song, but they also gave the artist chance to put a little bit of themselves in it. I felt, when they're performing the songs, they weren't copying a Beyonce or a Jennifer Hudson or whatever. They were being them as that character on stage, and I think that was key to this, because in a way it's got to feel raw. It's got to feel like they're in that moment, and I think they did a real good job of creating characterizations. As a director, they made sure that it translated onto stage. And maybe there is a handbook to how to do it and this, that and the other, but
maybe
you've still got to pull it off. You've still got to make sure that everybody's doing what they should be doing, and there's a lot happening in this.
And again, the transitions between one scene and another, they had like desks or tables and chairs on not plinths but like pieces of wood on wheels,
Yeah.
just wheeled
Yeah.
in on one
Yeah.
on each side and then
Yeah.
taken back off
But
again.
even they were orchestrated, so they both came
Yeah.
in at the same time.
It
and
felt
you-
as if they were like pushed on.
They were pushed
a
on with wood.
stick.
They were. That's how they used it. It was very old theatre
school.
technology with a rope on it to pull them back out. But that takes choreography from the two people doing that. They've got to
Yeah.
look at each other and they've got to make sure that it happens at the same time.
Yeah.
And it makes it special when all those moments happen like
Yes.
that. And I think that's key.
Um,
Yeah, I think when you're saying about scene changes and things like that, because a lot of these scene changes were minute and minuscule, they only lasted probably a few minutes each scene.
Yeah.
Some of the things, everybody had to be on their game. You know, it did make a difference, and you would have noticed if anybody was out of sync with it all, because it wouldn't have worked. You know, it's just to create the feel of it, really.
Yes. And they all worked so well together.
Oh,
the,
yeah.
the whole cast. It was just beautiful to watch, and the singers as well. The backing singers,
The ensemble,
yeah, all of those who played the other parts.
Yeah.
In terms of the other band.
Yeah.
You know, the group, they were some fantastic dancers as well.
Yeah.
And how they
it shows you how
they moved
versatile
around
they.
the
Yeah,
stage.
exactly.
It was beautiful to watch, actually.
And then to also note that this was a production where you have to also almost remind yourself everybody's singing live.
Yes.
And you step back and go, actually, they're all moving that fast, and they're all there must. I mean, I'd have been out of breath.
Did they have an orchestra underneath?
There was an orchestra because the conductor was at the front.
I can't remember seeing the conductor.
Yeah, I saw it. I went down.
It.
I saw the orchestra pit and I saw it being used. So yeah.
But let's just talk about the songs and the structure of the musical itself here, because it's difficult when you've got like lyrics in a book and stuff, because you can't get too bogged down by the writing if it's mostly a musical.
And I think this might be a musical that's been honed and tightened up over the years, maybe up until the film point, where actually that was the sort of standard that worked. And because it's been going that long, so it's like, 81, it's been going on, it's we're nearing 40 years, which is, it's over 40 years old now. And to think about that there's some productions that are that old that don't always stand the test of time, and this feels like almost timeless in a way.
Well, it is, because even though it was produced in, what did you say, 81?
81, yeah.
81, it's basically the 50s and 60s.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
So already it's surpassed that time.
Yeah, exactly. And then it becomes like the Grease, or like those sort of musicals that you just take for what they are, and like Hairspray in a way. Hairspray's Hairspray, and it's just...
Yeah.
And I think that's where this is at that level now. So you can't always mess with the structure of the writing, because it's all there now. And I think, but yeah, like you say, a lot of the songs, I think they all work. They're all very Motown. They're all very in the era of where they're meant to be.
Yeah.
The 50s, 60s change over with influences from loads of different sort of...
It was contemporary.
Yes.
Pop was one.
Yeah.
That changed them, and when they did the ballads, they put a pop like Donna Summer's spin on it.
Yeah, definitely.
Didn't they?
Yeah, it had all the elements of what was happening in the 50s
the
and
time.
60s at the time. Yeah, definitely.
What I'd also say with this one is the fact that, like when you were saying about referring it to Grease, there's standout songs in Grease. Well, there's standout songs in this as well.
Yeah.
And I think there's 3 where the audience members, they just went nuts.
Yeah.
Didn't they? They just went, like, they pretty much wetted themselves.
Yeah, I
over
mean,
it.
the two in front of me were that drunk they probably didn't know what they were sitting watching, but that was just those two.
I think they perked up.
No, they definitely perked up because they recognised it, yeah.
Yeah, and which ones were they? Let's see. And I'm telling you, I'm not going. That's...
I mean, Dreamgirls, it's
one.
always a winner.
I Am Changing.
Yeah.
And One Night Only. I think it's those 3.
It's also Listen as well, because that was... I think it was... I can't remember. I think it was rewritten for Beyonce when she actually performed it as the... that she actually had a hit with it.
Yeah, maybe. I don't particularly know, but all I know is like the audience members went wild over those 3 particular songs.
Yeah. And the Dreamgirls reprise at the end, they went... They really...
But yeah, but that was because it was the end.
Yeah.
To be fair. All the songs were just lovely.
Yeah, they were all
And
great.
They sang it really exceptionally well.
Yeah, and like you said about the different groups where they made the different sort of Motown groups, the cliched groups of the times of the 50s, 60s, the emerging artists, like the Sammy Davis Jr. character, and they had all those references for the Jackson Fives. You could see all these things coming out of this that were very similar to what was happening in the day.
Yeah. Is this actually based off the Supremes and Diana Ross?
Yeah,
it is.
It's that's where they went with it, because it's a similar. They just created a new characters and new things, but it was very much based on how one emerging artist becomes her own artist, and everybody else is mere players in that performance. And I think that's what this was doing.
Moving on now. Do you know what we're here for? We're
Here for the drama.
Let's talk about the acting now. I thought all the actors were just perfection on stage.
Yeah, totally.
They never misdelivered
No.
any lines or movements.
No.
And the characters were just always on point.
They embodied all the characters. They didn't.
Oh, they did.
They just didn't hold back. They didn't. There was a freedom. You could feel it.
There was a confidence in the room.
You
of
could.
Just,
You just
we got
knew
this,
that,
girls. Do you know what I mean?
You can do this. You know.
Yeah.
You know that. Yeah, I felt like you knew that the minute that curtain opened, they were off we go.
There was an energy.
Let's do it again.
There.
You know. You know. And that's key to this sort of production, because you've got to hit it hard and hit it fast. Otherwise, it wouldn't have the power.
Now, on the matinee that we saw, I have a feeling we saw Charlene Hector as
Effie.
I was looking at that thinking,
Alternative. Well, that's the new name.
That's a dodgy
Alternate.
name. Alternate. Yeah, Alternate.
Alternate.
I'm free to do what I want to do.
Yeah, so we saw Charlene Hector.
It wasn't Nicole.
Yeah, she was just brilliant.
Yeah, she was. And there's
Her
Effie White.
voice. I mean, we can't obviously compare them because we never saw the other one.
No.
But as an alternate, it feels quite insulting in a way to say that she's the alternate, where you could have just had like.
But then in a way, I
swapping
sort
and
of maybe it's almost like. It's interesting that they've used alternate because they haven't used understudy. So they're classing her as equal level.
Yeah.
Because for me, this is a big tour. It's actually touring up and down the country.
But then I'd have said also, then Nicole Raquel Dennis needs to have alternate Effie on her side as well in the programme.
Yeah,
she needs to be billed as alternate Effie.
True.
For it to not feel like you're the second version or second.
Definitely.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean...
Because Charlene gave a tremendous performance.
As Effie White, she was just... The character has to go through so much because you start almost as adolescent, as in you're very young and you're very impressionable, just starting out in a singing career, and then going from that to then going through so many emotions.
Well, the character, it evolved because she didn't particularly want to be there. She knew she had a voice. She was confident in her voice, but... she felt like she didn't necessarily need to make an effort.
No.
But then once she got into it and everything, she felt, well, actually, I'm the one with the voice. I'm the one that should be lead.
Yeah, exactly.
And then when that didn't happen for her and she was sort of replaced or moved about to the
Definitely.
back...
Yeah.
then she saw the consequences of that. Things spiralled downwards in a way until she came back and found her strength and her power and, well... found her voice again in that respect.
Exactly.
Because she didn't need to compete with them. Although she was in the band, she didn't necessarily need to compete with all the other artists. She just chose to keep her voice instead of changing it. Am I making sense?
You are. I mean, one thing I'd say is, with Dreamgirls, you almost forget it's a coming-of-age production. It's all those characters are growing up through this.
Well, like you say, that was Grease.
Yeah, it's the same principle, just not high school. It's on a,
It's finding out who you are in a professional manner.
But also you're seeing all the other characters evolve in that way as well. So if none of you commit to it, it's not going to have that power that it needs to build up to the songs that people know, like towards the end. It's, I'm telling you I'm not going. It's not going to have any power if we've not got to that bit.
Yeah.
If you've not built that feeling up until there, it's not gonna work, and I think that's pinnacle to this.
I also want to give a shout out to Paige Peddy, I think that's your name.
Yeah.
And she played Laurel Robinson, and she was basically cast as the goofy funny one.
Yeah, she was.
The I suppose the third one
Yes.
Although because she was funny, she felt more like is it like Frenchie?
Yes. Yeah. It is. It's almost like
she's
Frenchie.
very much like the funny one.
Very sure, very funny.
But she had attitude.
Yeah.
She had charisma.
Yeah.
And every line she didn't waste. She gave some kind of attitude or put down or some kind of poised emphasis on a particular word that just made it like shine and stand out and funny. And the best thing about that, or actors that are like that, is when they have maybe like a small part or a bit part or
less lines.
Not like a main part.
No.
But they make it so memorable that
just one reaction or one facial thing or just something they do.
I can remember more scenes with her in it than I probably could. The one that ended up being like the Diana Ross, the one that was pushed into the starlight.
Yeah.
Do I mean that starlight?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
That sounds a bit...
Spotlight,
that's the one I was going for. But I mean,
Starlight's just as good.
It could have worked.
It could have worked.
Not corrected myself, I could have just sounded like I
gone
knew
for
what
a
I was
Starlight,
talking about.
Could have been on an Express,
Exactly.
The other shout out I give to is Brandon Lee Sears for his energy.
Oh, yes.
Opening the production because...
Yes.
Wow.
Wow. He can move.
It was like, whack, off we go. You talk about captivated. He just drew the attention straight away.
He reminded me of a bit of Eddie Murphy in that essence.
It's the Sammy Davis Jr. thing. It's that bubbly, jolly, happy, but...
I don't really know that person, but he just, when he was on stage, I remember seeing like Eddie Murphy's stand-up or whatever, and he was so energetic, so funny, so here, there and everywhere. And when he managed to get on stage, Jimmy Early, he was all that and everything, but he was
on stage.
He was, instead of the comedian, he was a singer, but he gave a great comedic performance when it needed it as well.
Yeah, definitely.
And
you saw him age through it as well, and you didn't, you didn't just see the... It wasn't just that all the way through. You saw it get into a later in life where, almost like an Elvis like downturn in his life where you saw the cracks starting to show. Yeah. And I think that they did that really, really well.
But it happened to a lot of stars.
It did, they broke under pressure, and I think it was,
Let's face it, still now.
It happens,
you're pushed out there and you crumble. Costumes and props. They were lovely, weren't they? The costumes.
They were
amazing.
They
were incredibly made.
I think they were incredibly made, and
incredibly made. What does that mean? Incredibly made.
I don't know. I'm talking rubbish. I'm not going to say that.
Of the time.
I just thought they're of the time, of the moment. They evolved as well because they started very 50s with the pinafores and it was
very conservative 50s, wasn't it?
It was.
It was sort of floral and
very formal 50s, wasn't it?
Below the knee skirts.
But it soon showed that we were moving into the 60s, which was quite clever because it did show that.
Yes, the moment they became of age and everything got a bit more sexualised.
Yes, it did.
Things, skirts got a little bit higher. Things got a little bit.
It got more revealing, or there was more cutouts in the top, the bust area and stuff like that. So it was very much more revealing, which would have happened in the 60s anyway.
And the guys' suits, they were all quite... They looked like silk suits, weren't they? I mean, they might have been of the time. I'm not
they're very expensive. And,
but they're like
everything
patterned. Is it paisley?
Yeah, very paisley. But everything was very
colour coordinated.
Yeah, colour coordinated. But everything seemed to have a vibrancy. Even the ones that were in just a normal suit still had a bit of a vibrant feel to them. So everything didn't fit. There was no dullness on stage. I don't think really. I didn't feel anything was.
Yeah, I can't think. I think if anybody was in a dull suit, it would have been one of the. Is it one of the record?
It's when the solicitor turned up. I think that was really when he had a but that was purely to be
just Mr. Evil, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly.
Moving on to our next segment.
What the tack is this?
Let's talk technical details.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, this is going to link in to the directing, I suppose.
Yeah.
But there's one particular scene I want to sort of point out that was extremely well done, that I loved. And it involved the costume and a song number. Now, I can't particularly remember what song number it was, but everything went black.
It was one night only.
Oh, was it?
It was one night only because she did it as a ballad.
Yeah. And then they kept with the light on her face.
Yeah, on FEY.
And in the meantime, we couldn't see what was going on, but she
I suppose
basically
it's-
got changed.
Yeah, so when
they
she
took her clothes off.
she stood in the recording studio, as it were, in very dowdy looking clothes that were, and then they
Yes, because this is after she'd been forced out
yeah,
of the band.
it's just,
in
so
the
she was
second
doing
act,
recording
wasn't it?
her song because they, and then she stood on the stage, and then like you say they put light right on her face, but they literally
It was really well done technically how they did that.
yeah, it was
Because no one was like expecting it, nor did they realise. I suppose any normal person would just think it's probably just going to fade to black.
yeah, exactly,
And that's it.
yeah, just for the moment.
But it ended up being like a bit of a Looney Tunes sort of a moment.
But what she was wearing, have you no indication that she was wearing a full floor-length
proper gown underneath? No,
it didn't give you that.
It was just like a really dreary caftan, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like
basically?
over the knee skirt. It was
Well, it was an all-in-one.
Yeah, it was just.
So it was it was a caftan, but it was.
It was just. It was like
dreary
comfortable. It was
tablecloth
comfortable.
sort
It's something that you just.
thing. Yeah. What other technical moments stood out for you?
I mean, there's one faux pas that I did notice.
Oh.
In the second half, when the actual Dream X came out to perform One Night Only after Effie White sang it,
They did the
pop version. They were holding modern day wireless microphones, plastic ones that weren't of a 60s design or 60s style, which did detract from me personally, just because that's what in Six they would use when they're holding microphones, or it looked very similar, and it was like even if they'd have had ones that were just standard microphones with the cords cut off, it would have been enough. But the fact that they were just modern day microphones covered in glitter that you've seen on stage in a lot of things now where they use them quite a lot, I just felt it just detracted from the era. That was it. That was just one little thing that I noticed. But
I didn't notice it at all, but then again, I wasn't particularly.
But throughout the production, I mean, lighting and sound-wise, it was brilliant. I mean, technically,
yeah, the lighting was great.
Even though the panels that Stevens talked about with old traditional light fittings in, they were actually all upgraded to LEDs and LED things hidden within the actual design of the wall. So they had a lot of control in with modern LED technology, but nothing of that felt new. It felt all old, even though that. Actually, what they'd got behind they'd got LED panels that were hidden behind like smoked glass, or smoked perspex. So it didn't look like the LEDs. They just looked colour. There was just colour on those panels that changed colour when they needed it to, and the lights changed colour as it needed it to, just to add to the actual performance.
Thinking about it, what the set backdrop reminds me of those. Do you remember like Airfix or model things where you had certain things in those plastic things which you twisted off?
Yeah,
they looked a bit like those.
It's also very West Side Story as well, because that's very like almost stripped away, and a lot of industrial stairways and stuff like that. So it's very similar in feel.
So moving on to our rewind section, because we're going to call it rewind.
Yeah,
I think we probably need to record a little rewind intro, but. Until we decide to do that, let's just go for the moment you wish to review, rewind, and see again.
So I think for me it's One Night Only, because it was a moment that just punched you. It just it happened quite quickly, and it was unexpected. So yeah, I'd like to see that again.
I like that because I quite like how they did the spotlight and the reveal change. But I think I'm going to have to go for the end of Act 1 where it's, and I'm telling you I'm not going, when she has that big fallout, because how she delivered that song was so powerful, and so I had goose pimples on my goose pimples. It was that like intense, but dare I say evocative. It sort of made me not just pay attention, but like I felt teared.
Yeah, exactly.
Teared up,
yeah. Well, I felt like it's a massive build-up.
The first time, I suppose, I've had an emotional connection to a musical in a very, very long time. I suppose the last time was Hairspray, but at the cinema.
Yeah.
2007 or 8. Moving on to our next segment.
Call this a show.
Scores then, please, for Dreamgirls, with 10 being We're Going to Love Them, with 1 being Wishing It Was One Night Only. What are you going to give it?
I'm going to give this a 10 out of 10.
I'm going to definitely give this a 10 out of 10 as well. I thought it was thoroughly enjoyable.
Yeah.
I didn't necessarily think it was something I'd dread. No, I don't mean it like that, but I wasn't fazed one way or another. I just knew I wanted to come see this because I loved it. And I'm so glad I did, because it just lived up to its expectation and more. It really did. I would definitely recommend this to
I
other
had
people.
I had high hopes, and it lived up to those hopes.
So, what sound effect will you be choosing from the following? A complete train wreck, tumbleweed, an audible shrug of the shoulders, a slow clap, a pleasant applause, or a standing ovation. What will it be?
Standing ovation can only be one thing.
And it's going to be a standing ovation for me as well. I think everybody stood up for this. To be fair. Everyone stood up and they were clapping like seals. It was just amazing.
Yeah, and I'd definitely see it again.
Definitely. So there we are. That's our discussion of Dreamgirls. We hope you found it insightful.
If not, entertaining.
Coming up over the next few episodes, we will be discussing
South Pacific
and a Nottingham Panto special double bill. That's it for this week, folks.
If you'd like to drop us a message, please email us at upstagedowstagepod@gmail.com. Remember, you can always join in the chat to share with us your views on a production.
Also, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel so you get every episode the second it's released. And we hope you join us again for another instalment of Upstage Downstage.